5 o'clock, Prater on the Ballgame, KTIK, The Ticket. Like to welcome our Dollar Loan Center video audience to the program. Visit don'tbebroke.com and you'll see all the sweet deals going on with the Dollar Loan Center. Prater, the air quality right now, it's rough outside. Hopefully people aren't listening to this while they're going on a stroll throughout their neighborhood. I couldn't imagine that being the case, but hopefully everybody is safe and they can fix this issue and, clean this thing up, Prater. Horrible air quality out there today.
Ball game. If this was a college football game or a high school football game, it would have been canceled. But we're here and we're not going anywhere, but we're tucked inside this little studio. We're safe and cozy and protected, and hope everybody else outside. I keep telling people that the heat isn't that big a deal, but I work in Cubicleville with air conditioning. Can you imagine working outside today? Massive kudos to anybody that's spending time outside working for a paycheck in this condition.
I wonder if anybody did that.
Well,
Yeah.
Lots of people were. Yeah, I had to go to a meeting for lunch, and there's all kinds of, the landscapers, the garbage. I mean, everybody's working outside except for you and me.
I wouldn't have done that. I would have called in.
Yeah, you would have.
I would have called in today.
Yeah,
He's so passionate about his fantasy football league, but he would call in sick because of the air quality.
He's the guy that launched himself off a ladder just to break an ankle so he didn't have to go to work once.
Prater on the Ballgame, KTIK, The Ticket. Yes, not going to lie. All right, Prater, 13 ex-Boise State Broncos are calling themselves NFL players.
Absolutely, right now.
And there's 13. Most camps have started. The rest will come through the rest of the week, and we're full on with the NFL.
By the way, I have a trivia question for you.
Okay.
Spotrac. I like to follow Spotrac. Spotrac.com is where you can get all your money, and they do a lot of other database type stuff. Active NFL players based on NFL rosters right now, West Coast schools. Which school has the most NFL players in the league right now? West Coast.
Washington.
47, Oregon 43, UCLA 39, USC 37, and then it kind of drops from there.
Boise State's 13.
Boise State's 13. Here's the comparables. Oregon State has 22, San Diego State has 19, Fresno State has 17, Washington State has 15, Boise State checks in with 13, Wyoming 12, and Colorado State 10. So there's only five Mountain West schools that have guys in there right now, or at least based in double digit stuff. So
Wyoming has basically as many dudes in the league right now as Boise State.
One less, 12, and Colorado State has 10. But San Diego State, despite their struggles, 19. Fresno State 17. BYU's got 22 in there right now. So I thought that number was kind of interesting. Boise State 13. Let's talk about those guys.
I'd like to hear real quick too why Boise State fan thinks that's the case. What's happened however, that there's a couple of Mountain West schools that have more NFL players than Boise State does, and does it bug you?
It should bug them.
State doesn't dominate in NFL players when it comes to Mountain West schools because they're not even first.
Yeah, and San Diego State and Fresno, I think, have always been, I don't know about dominate, but they've certainly been ahead a little bit. I mean, the answer to your question is easy. There's been a talent train at Boise State in terms of high-end type of talent. And I think it goes back to, I'll even go back to the very, very end of the Chris Peterson era where things got a little sloppy. And then certainly the NFL, there was an NFL emphasis for a while, but then the talent drain started. And I don't think it's just a Mountain West or a Boise State thing. It's the talent drain from the West heading east and going to the Big Ten, going to the SEC, and those kinds of things. So it's a little bit, there's a lot of things involved there, but Boise State doesn't have the kind of NFL talent now that it had before. There were times when Boise State had 20 to 25 players going into camp.
Yeah, and I mean, Washington right there, they're number one. That's because of Chris Peterson.
47.
I mean, most of those dudes are Pete recruits. Heck, Roma Dunze was a Chris Peterson recruit.
Yes, sir.
So Chris Peterson does such a fabulous job of putting dudes into the NFL and getting them on that path. That's where we are. Boise State players in the NFL. What's up with some of these guys? First, Prater, I want to just mention quickly Charles Leno. I reached out to Chuck yesterday. Usually he's really good to get back to Idaho Sports Talk and keep us posted, but he hasn't reached back. I'm guessing he's probably laying low. He's not signed with the team. He's still a free agent coming off a surgery. He's at an interesting crossroads, Charles Leno Jr. Probably not a lot of money in the bank for a team that's going to pay him to come in and possibly have to work through an injury there. Hopefully we know more, but right now, Charles Leno Jr.'s NFL future is up in the air. Luckily for him, he hung out in the league for like 10 plus years and made a crap ton of money. He's good.
If he's healthy and if he wants to play football, I think he's going to get another chance. And we've all seen the transaction wire during training camp, and it's going to start this week and go on for the next 6 weeks. And there's going to be injuries. There's going to be movement. David Bakhtiari, he's the number one tackle free agent that's out there. He hasn't signed with anybody either, and he wants to play. And if David Bakhtiari hasn't been signed, nobody's going to sign until he signs. So as soon as he signs, there's like 4 or 5 other left tackles out there that could play that position that are kind of in line to be the next line of free agencies. If you put in Charles Leno Jr. and talk to and look at NFL reporters on Twitter, there's been some Saints mentioned. There's been some Patriots mentions. There's been some Colts mentioned in terms of those 3 teams need offensive linemen. They need outside tackles, and they may need a quick fix. And they all mentioned Charles Leno as a possibility out there. But again, I don't think anything's going to happen until David Bakhtiari signs with somebody, the old Green Bay guy, who's certainly at the top of that free agent list. I think Charles Leno's number 2.
All right, Scott Matlock. Let's get there. Scott Matlock, LA Chargers, year 1 of the Jim Harbaugh era. And if you're wondering kind of at all, while it's working out with Scott Matlock entering year 2 and what it's like having Jim Harbaugh as his coach and how that's all working out, Prater. Jim Harbaugh said this a couple of weeks back when asked about Scott Matlock.
Just everything that he does, every way that he goes from meeting to the training environment to the practices, there every day. I mean, the power of the there every day, Ted, is so powerful. There's no question that you get better at football by being there every day. But nobody has to wonder. Nobody has to wonder, is Scott Matlock or somebody that's there every day, are they going to be there? Yeah, just look out in the seat and there they are, ready to go. Sitting on a spring, ready to get out to practice. Sometimes already tape dressed and ready to roll. So not only do I see that, but everybody sees it.
I worried about Scott Matlock last year. I thought when I focused on him when he was playing that there were times where he was completely overwhelmed in terms of strength and just getting traction. It's a tough big guy league. And Scott Matlock was a rookie that to me seemed a little bit lost, but also showed some flashes. Listening to that and hearing that from Coach Harbaugh gives me lots of hope, and anybody that's ever met Scott Matlock as well, because Scott Matlock is one of those kinds of Ted guys. I never heard of that. In there every day and a grinder and trying to get better all the time. That's Scott Matlock. So I'm expecting monster jump from year 1 where you're a rookie to year 2 where you need to be relevant. And he's already caught the attention of Harbaugh. So hopefully an off season of just grinding, he needs to get stronger, even though he's a really strong guy. We know his background. And guys, this is a guy that has a chip on his shoulder and wants to be proven wrong so we can go out there and prove you wrong. I believe in Scott Matlock. I just hope that he can go out there and physically belong in the NFL. Year number 2 for me is big.
Yeah, JP's kind of a Ted guy in broadcasting. I love it. He's a Ted. What's that? There every day. Ted. Makes perfect sense.
I think all 3 of us are.
Yeah, no, we are.
Except for vacations. I don't know. Nobody's calling in sick or anything around here. So
we don't really deal with the guys calling in sick.
No. Yeah,
that's
we're
good
Ted.
for Jim Harbaugh. I think, okay, if Scott Matlock doesn't make it in the NFL, dang it, bless his heart, he just wasn't good enough at football. That's what's going to be in the way. It's not because he isn't strong enough. It's not because he's not there. It's not because he doesn't work. It's not because he doesn't learn. He will do all of that stuff. But I think it's just going to come down to between the lines on Sunday. Are you moving that dude, or is that dude moving you, Scott? And I saw him play a lot last year, and he wasn't very active. He'd get blocked. He was there. I mean, he didn't wreak havoc. It wasn't like when he was in college where there'd be 3 guys on him and he's moving the line. But obviously that goes without saying. Prater, the kind of the main meat and potatoes of this segment, 13 NFL Boise State players. What's up with these guys? I think the star in this whole thing this year, and this is low for Boise State. They don't have a number of high profile players, but Khalil Shakir, a lot of eyeballs, not just in Boise, Idaho, but throughout the NFL. The Buffalo Bills made a choice. They traded their marquee A1 possibly potential Hall of Fame caliber player in Stephon Diggs. And they didn't replace him. They drafted a rookie. And if you saw the video on Instagram today, bless that kid's heart, he had never signed his name on a paper before. He had to ask questions on that. Bless his heart. Some of these kids, man, they've never signed checks before. They don't know what they're doing. They've never accepted checks before. But Khalil Shakir, a lot of expectations in Buffalo, Prater.
I played a game today in Cubicleville, and this is the cool part of our job. We get to play on the internet and talk about sports and chase sports on the internet. You go into Twitter and you go into the search bar and play this game with me, ball game, and type in Khalil Shakir. And when it comes up, it's 4 or 5 NFL reporters and then a whole bunch of McGillicuddies, as you like to say, just out there talking. But here's the consensus. Every single one of them wants and expects Khalil Shakir to have a monster season. Here's some dude. Mark my words when I say Khalil Shakir will become a top 10 wide receiver this year. And then I'm going to compare him to a sun god. I mean, there's so many different people out there talking about Khalil Shakir busting out, Khalil Shakir being number one, Khalil Shakir, the potential. We looked at these 13 players. That's 10 offensive guys and 3 defensive guys. And we had a production meeting this morning and we talked about pressure. I think Khalil Shakir, out of these 13, outside of the normal trying to grind and be successful in the NFL, only Khalil Shakir has a massive, massive amount of pressure on him this year. The entire Buffalo world, Bills Mafia, wants this guy to be wide receiver number one. He's been grinding harder than anybody we've ever met in our entire life. Here in Boise, expectations for him to be wide receiver number one. NFL people think he should be wide receiver number one. Josh Allen wants him to be wide receiver number one. The Bills, through their actions, want him to be wide receiver number one. And could Khalil Shakir become wide receiver number one?
Sometimes I don't think it's fair for an NFL team to ask a 5th round draft pick from 2 years ago. Okay, you got to play like a 1 now, even though you're making, I don't know, what's he making, 1.1 this year? But we're going to pay you, to play like the Vikings are expecting Justin Jefferson to play as a receiver 1. I don't think that's fair in a lot of cases. I think Shaq can handle it, though. I just need Shaq to be a fluid part of this offense, always out there. And I don't know how we're going to label receiver 1, 2, or 3. I don't know if Shaq's going to play mainly in the slot. Will you still refer to him as their number 1 receiver if he only operates out of the slot? Maybe, I guess, because Keon Coleman, the rookie, he's a big player. Curtis Samuel's smaller like Shaq. He might be a slot guy. Valdez-Scantling. They got a bunch of him. Okay. All right. Chase Claypool. Valdez-Scantling.
Yeah, there's no doubt Shakir needs to be wide receiver number 1. His biggest internal competition will become from 2 of the best tight ends in the NFL, and Knox and Kincaid. And Kincaid probably is going to be early on, maybe while Shaq continues to try to develop into this role as wide receiver 1. Maybe Kincaid is, target number 1 for Josh Allen. Certainly Knox is going to be there. And then here comes Shakir, who, by the way, base salary this year, $985. So, not even making $1 million.
$1 million. And that's serious pressure on there. And if this doesn't work, and let's say Buffalo's 9-8, 10-7, good enough to make the playoffs, but they don't win the division, farting around in the wild card round, like I like to call it, just kind of, 9-8, 10-7. If they're doing that, I don't know how much blame Shaq will get, but the organization will get a lot of blame saying, you guys did this to yourself, man. You didn't go get any receiver when you lost Diggs. You can't draft Keon Coleman. By the way, in the second round, they didn't even say, okay, we're going to get that big name receiver. We're taking him in the top 5. You waited to round 2, and bless that kid's heart. I am not blaming that kid. I'm just blaming a lot of other factors, but the kid had to ask the owner how to sign his name on a piece of paper. Okay.
Yep.
You saw that too, Prater?
Yep.
I mean, I'm bless the kid's heart. Hopefully he's going to learn, and I hope he's got a great career ahead of him, but it was kind of odd to look at there. And Shaq's got the situation right there in front of him. I hope he's ready to make it happen. Now, the one stat, I think you know this, Prater, but there wasn't a receiver in the NFL last year, not one, that had a higher catch percentage than Khalil Shakir, 86.7.
Yep.
That was the percentage of Josh Allen targets Shaq caught. No receiver had a higher percentage. Only running backs had a higher percentage, and they're catching balls in the flat. That's what's impressive about Shaq. The only problem is it was 45 targets. That's going to have to go up to about 115 targets, and I don't think it's impossible for the catch percentage to stay even close to that, nor does it have to. But
he was at 50% his rookie year, by the way. Exactly 50%, if I remember the exact stat.
Yeah, you're right. I'm looking at it right now.
So that's a significant improvement. Take that jump again, and maybe these Bills aren't farting around in the wild card round like you think that they are. But you're right. I think the Bills, if this doesn't work, Josh Allen and the Bills front office and the entire offense will take a massive PR hit.
Okay, and also throw this in. This does not count on the stats that we just talked about. Playoff stats are their own animal. Shaq last year in 2 playoff games caught 10 balls for 75 yards and 2 teeters. That's Shaq. And if that's any indication, you don't hear me talking about fantasy football. Don't go nuts on it. But if Khalil Shakir is sitting there in the mid to late rounds, take a flyer on a guy like that. He might end up being Josh Allen's number 1 receiver this year. And if he is, that's a guy you're going to start every single week in fantasy football, just like your boy, Dalton Kincaid. Mike Prater.
Ballgame, there's 13 guys. We mentioned them. We just talked about Scott Matlock, and we just talked about Khalil Shakir. The other 11 guys, let's take a quick break and come back, because I don't think these other 11 guys, there's no pressure whatsoever. It's almost like they're on a gravy train. Yeah, it's nice to be in the NFL. And by nature of competing in the NFL, there's going to be pressure. But even guys like from John Bates to DeMarcus Lawrence, I don't think there's any pressure on any of these 11 guys.
Prater, David Meridian wants to know real quick, though, how many Utes are on that list of West Coast football programs putting players into current NFL rosters?
I left that out just because I was wearing a Ute shirt today. And it's a nice number, 29.
Okay. Utah's got 29. David and Meridian, that's why you listen to Idaho Sports. So I appreciate you guys at Dollar Loan Center. Visit don'tbebroke.com and apply for a loan in a matter of minutes. We're going to be back on that other side. He's Prater. I'm Johnny. We're Prater on the ball game, and you are listening to Idaho Sports Talk.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studios, this is Ticket Traffic.